Yes, sir.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Angela.
Walaikum salam. Happy Savior
How are things from the wheel?
You're navigating. Praise be to Allah.
Let me see. Let me get this. Get this. This always gives me a problem here. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, the
Mhm.
science of being
Okay. The
overwhelmed.
science of being overwhelmed. So what happened was I came across this concept in one of the extension courses and then immediately decided, okay, let me see if I can find this in the Holy Quran. And what I would like to share with you is the result of, as the minister instructed us, marrying the supreme wisdom with the supreme technology. And this is just going to be a quick, a quick overview because God willing, I want to take this a little bit deeper on Sunday. So this is just a quick overview. So four of the concepts we're going to look at is the tech of being overwhelmed. And there's a specific concept called the system of facsimiles. And as I'm reading the systems of facsimiles, the question that comes to my mind, remember we talked about how Allah puts a thought in our mind and then we take that thought and we bring it into fruition.
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
It's like Allah will spiritually impregnate our thinking and then we produce a mental construct or a mental concept,
Go
correct?
ahead. Go ahead.
We're giving birth to the idea. The question came to mind was, can the tree of Zakum be
No,
equivalent to a
I'm not.
system of facsimiles? And then for those that aren't aware of, well, what is the tree of Zakum? Okay. There's three ayats in the Holy Quran that talks about a tree uh, in an allegorical way. And we're going to see if we can connect these two concepts, the system of facsimiles and the tree of Zakum, into one concept. All right, the tech of being overwhelmed. So what is overwhelming? By definition, it means to upset or to overthrow. It means to cover over completely, to submerge. So as I saw this reminded me of Noah and the flood. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm.
So we have the story of Noah and the flood, and we have Noah telling people to get in the boat. And then we have other people saying, I'm going to take myself to the mountain. And some people got in the boat and some people did not, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we understand, at least I do, my humble opinion, is that when we read of, uh, when you look, and I'm looking specifically at study guide number two, no, excuse me, study guide number one, mixed feeling and controversy, how it covers Surah 7, ayat number 59 through 141, and it gives us the story of all those prophets and messengers, correct?
Go ahead.
Okay. And if we read those stories and look at what each prophet and messenger went through, I think we would see different aspects of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has gone through and is going through. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so each prophet and messenger from the past is a snippet or a seeing the minister from different perspectives, as to say that the minister would be the sum total, have to go through all of the things that those prophets and messengers went through at that time period, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I say that to say this, that when Noah told people to get in the boat because a flood was coming, me personally, I look at that as an allegorical representation of the boat represents the tech, the flood represents the propaganda,
Go
and
ahead.
getting in the boat implies us preparing our minds with the tech so that we're not overcome by the flood of propaganda. Does that make sense?
That's
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what happens is when you deal with overwhelm, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in The Divine Destruction of America, Can She Avert It? He says that grief was going to be a tool that Allah was going to use during the chastisement.
mm,
And if he tells us the fire is coming, and that fire and one of those tools is going to be grief. And if we have the tech, then we have the tools necessary for us, not only for us to see grief from a different perspective, but we are able to assist individuals that are going through grief so that the grief does not overcome them, correct?
mhm.
Hmm.
Right on point, brother.
So, in other words, those that drowned during the time of the flood in the time of Noah, in that time, could be a metaphor or an allegory to represent individuals that will be drowned in the propaganda that will be behind the minister and his departure.
Mm,
Okay. We don't know what is in store. And I believe Brother Ishmael mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I think it was Brother Ishmael that mentioned it. If it wasn't, I've heard this from somewhere that when you look at what's taking place in the media, when you look at what's happening to Puff Daddy, the mayor of New York, this is all a test run
ooh,
designed to prepare to discredit possibly and bring the minister to court, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
that,
We don't know what charges they're going to try to trump up. We don't know what kind of videotape they have fabricated. In the time of AI, you can fabricate anything you want now.
Hmm.
We don't know what lie they have in store that they want to use against members of the nation to try to disrupt us and disconnect us from the minister. But whatever they show, we know it's going to be BS. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
It ain't gonna work.
However, well, I hope that's true, but there will be some of us, and I pray that I'm 1000% wrong, but we don't know until the trial comes. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And we would like to think, and I understand because I'm in the mindset of no, I'm not turning.
mm-mm.
But there may be some that do, and we have to be, as the minister would say, the watchman on the wall
Mhm.
to reach down and grab those brothers and sisters and pull them up into the ark so that they don't go down with the flood. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
I
Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. What you're saying, yes, sir, because the language, when you listen to the language that they're using, they say allegedly a lot. They say, well, I'm not saying that this is true, but this is the conspiracy, and they throw information out there. They just throw it out there. And the way our minds have been conditioned, the people's minds have been conditioned, is not to reason, not to think, just to react.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, sir. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, sir. I think about um, um, this technology and the study guides and the Holy Quran, and just how important it is for us to implement it,
Mm-hmm.
practice it, because we have to build up that pressure on the inside to withstand the pressure that's going to come from the outside. And from
Mm-hmm.
my experience, it only comes from implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Of what we're learning. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir.
And that is one of the reasons why I'm working on something for us to take us into the science of the argument, how to look at arguments from a mathematical side, how to identify liars mathematically. Sister Angela, you may remember this, but it was about 2 or 3 years ago when you and I first met on, I think it was Brother Tuquan's platform. I think it was during the time that he was having it in the morning and in the evening, correct? This is
Yes, sir. Yes.
okay. And I had talked briefly about the concept of fallacies. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So hopefully what I hope to do is do a whole class on it, so that we can see the lie and the liar, be able
Oh,
to
wow.
deconstruct the lie from a mathematical standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and assist other people in seeing the lie. Because liars avoid arguments. They use what's called a fallacy.
Mm,
Oh my goodness.
Fallacy in our language is called tricknology, but there's a
mm,
whole science behind it, and we're going to start going into that over the course of the couple of weeks. But so overwhelm
Brother
to
Lusman.
drown. Yes, someone speaking.
Yes, this is Brother Eric.
Oh, go ahead, brother Eric. I'm sorry. Let me move this down so I can see.
The thing that comes to me from what this is, I think it was Sister Tina talking,
Mm-hmm.
and it brings the notion of learning the actual facts, and also coupled with the student enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever somebody's going to present something to us, how much of the facts that we know,
Uh-huh.
and based on what we learn from the student enrollment, which is really another way of saying history.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Honorable Elijah Morris say history is most attractive and best qualified to reward our research.
Mm-hmm.
So they come with their lie. Okay, I hear you. So based on the history, now you can bring, okay, this is the historical fact. That does not compare to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that means your facts are not actual.
Mm-hmm.
It's invention.
mhm,
So therefore, we cannot follow what you're saying. So now, once you start really hurl truth at falsehood, what happened to
Knocks your
falsehood?
brains
knock
out.
brains out.
That's the whole thing. So therefore, if we do not have that notion in us to understand the value of what we got,
Mm-hmm.
we may fall into the emotional side of it
Mhm,
and fumble and crumble.
mhm,
But once you know the actual facts, you can always overcome all obstacles on our path.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say what you do with this class that you do, they are very valuable, because one person say one thing evokes something from the lessons in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
And when you get it, you don't keep it to yourself. You have to bring it to the body, so that now we all are equipped with the same knowledge, so that we can always defend one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously there will be a lot of lies.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
And a lie to take hold had to have something true in it. They put a little bit true. Oh yeah, that's true. And now you forget you take all the rest for true.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
And that's what you're saying right now is very valuable to me. I don't know about anybody else.
Me too.
We are all hearing you, but it's valuable.
All praise is due to Allah.
Mhm.
Wait for me to say Allahu Akbar.
Yes, sir.
Allahu
Uh, one of the reasons why it is so important for us, brother, and this is the thought that you triggered. This is the thought that you triggered based on your words. We have to know our teaching so well. If you understand how a vaccination works, our supreme wisdom lessons could be understood if we actually demoed, if we actually went through the medical side of how a vaccination actually works, how you inject a live virus into the body so the body produces antibodies, so the next time you come in contact with that, you have something to fight it off. Our lessons and the minister's words represent an intellectual and a spiritual vaccination. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Oh
sir.
wow, you bring something else again.
Say what, brother Eric?
You just brought something else, because you see, in the scientific terms, they come with microscope. And the microscope takes something that cannot be seen with with your eyes, but yet it magnified that thing so big you could take it for a cow. We got another one called telescope. That brings something that is so distant, it make it so close you think you can touch it. And there are other science that are being used, and these are magnifying everything. So they take a lie, they take something like this and make it a whole universe just to see how they can defeat you.
Yes, sir.
We got it. Thank you, man. You are bringing a lot of things right now.
And that's why the tech is so important. The tech works as a mental telescope and a mental microscope because it takes the little things and makes it big. It allows us to go way down the time track of things that are distant and bring it up close, don't it? So that tech works the same way. Thank you, Brother Eric. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
You got amplifier also, right? The amplifier amplify the sound.
Amplifies the sound. Yes, sir.
Make it more audible. And you think, oh, wow.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Sister Tina?
Oh, yes. Both Brother Eric and yourself brought up something in my mind in regards to my studying of what's happening today with our brothers and sisters in entertainment, because I've been studying it, and I see modern day slavery in its fullest.
Of course.
In its fullest. And I remember hearing the minister say that at some point, you know? And so I'm studying something that I got from the Holy Quran, Surah 2, verse 185, where it's talking about Ramadan and how Ramadan is really the criterion. Ramadan helps us to practice how we're supposed to be, period, anyway. And the minister is the criterion. And so I'm watching him, how he handles his anger in regards to the reality of Satan's world and how it has affected us and is infecting us. So, yes, and his anger is so controlled. It's so controlled. So I reflect back on some of his expressions in my mind when he's speaking about the captive and how they will be released from the captor, the contracts, and all that stuff. And I said, oh my God, I see it so clearly now. So much more clearly than I did. And by way of this technology, I'm able to have, and which helps me to see our study guides and everything else that we're given more clearly. It's the tool, the magnifying glass, this technology, the microscope. So I'm able to just connect it in order to see how I need to be when the flood, what you're talking about, Brother Lukman, is totally on us. You know, the how we're given everything on how we need to be in that time. We're given the criterion, and we have the live criterion right before us, so we can reflect on how he's handling it. It's just so. I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful to have what Allah has given us. So yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sister Tina. Go ahead, Brother Eric.
One more thing that just came to my mind, because you mentioned it earlier, as the minister talked about the marriage of the tech with our supreme wisdom. But the word is marriage. When you get the marriage, it's not only one side, it's two.
Mhm.
So therefore, the time that we are going through requires that we stand firm on our platform, but we have also to borrow from the other platform, because there are certain things that we have that they don't, and there are certain things that they have that we did not have. Now we do. So anything that we have to do now, we have to make sure that we can really bring everything in union
Mhm.
that can give us a better way to survive whatever the time that is coming in gonna
Mhm.
be.
Yes, sir. Most definitely. Most definitely. And again, we just see the cognition is just we're cracking atoms back and forth. Based on what Sister Tina said, could we say that the minister's energy is like a burning bush?
Yes.
Remember, the minister taught that the burning bush represented God's anger, but not allowing the anger to consume him, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then there was something you said, Sister Tina, that brought in my mind. The microscope is what sees the little things. The minister talked about the blemish and the spot remover, right?
Yes, sir.
So could we say the study guides are a microscope to get things up close, self-examination, self-analysis, self-correction, and the tech is the telescope that allows us to see back on the time track when things went crazy? Can we use the microscope and the telescope like the tech and the supreme wisdom teachings?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Last but not least, here's an exercise for everyone who understands algebra based on something that Brother Eric said. We're taught that marriage equals one half of faith, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, now if you were to write that out as an equation, say marriage equals one half, and then you could write faith next to that. Could you not? Marriage equals one half times faith.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. But now if you want to get faith by itself, you have to multiply both sides by 2. And when you multiply both sides by 2, that 2, that one half that's over by faith, it cancels. And then you get 2 times marriage equals faith. So faith is not just one marriage, but faith is actually 2 marriages. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So we look at it as far as marriage itself, each individual has to have a connection to God.
Right. That's right.
It just goes, there's something you said, Brother Eric, about the 2 marriages. The very, very first thing I remember, this was the spring of 1990. It's like the minister spoke and flipped the switch. I was sitting in the dining hall, and at the time, I think I was taking organic chemistry. And it was something that came to my mind, and I wrote it down. And when you look at, remember the periodic table? Some of us might remember the periodic table.
Yes, sir.
Hydrogen is number 1, right? Hydrogen is
I,
1 on the periodic table.
I don't know what's on it, but I remember what it looks like. It's a
Okay.
whole lot of stuff.
So when you look at H2O, water, that represents life, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you look at H2O, I remember looking at the fact H is the first element on the periodic table. I said, okay, number 1 represents the original man. I said, now these 2 hydrogens are connected, but they're not connected to one another. They're connected to the oxygen.
That's right.
And the O represents everything and no thing. It's 360 degrees, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So what keeps the 2 hydrogens together? So one hydrogen could represent the original Black man and the other H could represent the original Black woman. And what holds them together is not the connection they have to one another. They're both connected to the same God. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
I remember that was the very first thing I remember writing down in my notes.
Mm-mm-mm.
That was spring of 1990. Anyway.
Here we go. We got demo kids. You see
Demo
what I'm
kits.
saying?
Demo kits.
Wow.
Remember, the universe is Allah's demo kit.
Mhm.
Okay. Overwhelm, to overcome by superior forces or numbers.
Ooh.
It means to overpower in thought or feeling. So we're really talking about restimulation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The
Mm.
synonyms are to crush, to devastate, to floor, to grind down, to oppress, to overcome, to overmaster, to overpower, or to swamp. So that's the basic definition of overwhelm. It comes from Middle English, over plus whelming, which means to cover up or turn over. So we can understand that those drowning in the time of Noah could be an allegory for individuals that will be drowned when the emotion or propaganda increases. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Mm.
Okay. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Mhm.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Walaikum
salam.
I kind of was in and out there. I had to go out of the room. But something that was being mentioned earlier, and then the last statement that you just made, brought me back to the thought I had earlier about being overwhelmed. And this past weekend, we were at a festival, a music festival that was held downtown. And I thought of overwhelm in the sense of the state of our people and what we witnessed in the state of our people and how extreme it has become. And basically, it has gone to such a level of degradation that it overwhelms your spirit, it overwhelms your mind, your whole senses, just to see our people that we have stooped so low and have such little regard for ourselves with our open display of total lunacy, craziness in the way we dress, our mannerisms, the way we talk to each other. Totally anything goes. And I thought about, just I had it pulled up the image of a believer. We go out in our modest dress among the people. And I remember some of the conversation that we had is that our people have got to the point where there's absolutely no regard for any iota of truth. We don't want it. We don't want to hear it. You might as well just get out of here with that stuff. We're taking over this festival now with our madness. We've gotten so bold with it that we don't care that it's organized by righteous people and that there are guidelines for the type of presentations and type of things that can be here. No, we don't want to hear that. We're bold enough, we're strong enough, powerful enough that I'm going to come through here flaunting my body, flaunting my gayness or whatever it isness that I want to flaunt. I'm going to do that. And if you got something to say, come on with it, because we don't care what you got to say, because we're going to do it anyway. That type of overwhelming attitude is what we witness. But it brought up in my mind that, okay, a righteous person coming through there, Muslim, Christian, or whatever, whatever you label you carry, but let's just put the label of righteousness on there. Somebody striving to be upright, be godlike, Christ-like, walks through there and the people pay them no attention, no regard. So it's like there's no power. And I thought about if the minister came through there they would run and hide. And often, you know, some of us may have a little power that when we come through, they may straighten up a little bit, try to pull down their whatever it is they have on that's not covering anything, but they still tug on it a little bit because it's their consciousness that's tugging on them. So some of us may have a little bit of power to that we're affecting their consciousness. But when the minister comes through, his light is so bright, his energy is so strong, his righteousness is so high that they run and they take cover. But the next thought that came to me, and this is all to do with being overwhelmed with they're overwhelming the world with their madness. But one stands in the midst of that, and with the light, he overwhelms them with his light. And I thought of in the scripture, it says, I am the way, truth, and the light. And that, so if you're seeking a way, if you're stuck in this madness and you're seeking a way out of this madness, but you're so overwhelmed that you can't see anything to grasp onto, like being caught in quicksand. You know, you're looking, is there a tree close by with a branch hanging close enough that I can grab onto it and get myself out of this, because I'm sinking fast. I just, you know, caught up in it so much I can't get out. Then I am the way, the truth, and the light. You know, and so that's the thought that I had, that this teaching that we have can overwhelm whatever our people are going through, to be that branch that can pull them out of the quicksand. Yes, sir. So that was what I wanted to share.
All praise due to Allah. Thank you. That's right on point. Right on point. And you actually touched on a lot of what we're about to discuss as well. So thank you for that, Sister Ania.
Brother Lukman.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just say this one thing to for what Sister Ania said? When she started speaking, and it immediately reminded me of you don't have to condemn a dirty glass, just put a clean glass next to it. And the minister is that clean glass. So if we implement what we've been given, practice what we've been given, what we are given, we will also be a clean glass. The minister, he brings his own atmosphere. He brings his own atmosphere with him wherever he goes. And that reminded me of the theta. You know, the theta can come in and just change all that in theta into theta. And that's what he does. So when she said that, you know, they straighten up, they will straighten up because of his light. That's all that theta that he's bringing in to change all that in theta into theta for that moment. Yeah. Praise be to Allah. Thank you.
Yeah. Sister Ania, can you do me a favor and look something up in the Holy Quran real quick? Because there's something you said that was actually a part of one of the ayats I had looked up. Do you have your Holy Quran handy? Sister Ania?
Yes, sir.
Surah 17, ayat number 60.
60.
Sorry, it was in the other room. I thought I had it right beside me, but it was in
Okay.
the room. Well, I opened it up to 1780. That was good. Praise be to God.
I have a Brother Luke, mine 1760.
Okay, and when we said to thee, surely thy Lord encompasses men,
Mhm.
and we made not the vision which we showed thee, but a trial for men, as also the tree cursed in the Quran, and we warned them, but it only adds to their great inordinacy.
That's kind of like what you were just saying, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wow.
And that tree cursed, that's what we're going to be talking about, the tree cursed. Okay. That was, when you said that, it triggered that ayat that I had there. All right, let's get back to it. Okay. So there's a cycle of overwhelming. Cycle of overwhelming. Let me get this. I hope that's not going to be. Let me do this over here. Okay. The cycle of overwhelming. So in what I'm going through right now, it says this. This is coming from Hubbard Professional Course. This whole article was incredible. But this small part says this, says, well, what is important here is that games are overwhelmings. He says, as a person begins to be unwilling to overwhelm, he, of course, begins to be unwilling to win, and so loses pan-determinism and sinks into self-determinism. Okay, now let me explain that, because this overwhelming is taking on another context, but it's very, very relevant. So in this, there's a cycle, okay, based on how he's presenting it here. So now overwhelming, how he's using this is this. We're looking at overwhelming from the opposite standpoint, meaning as an individual, we have to be willing to overwhelm this world. Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
Okay, it's the same word, just used in the opposite direction. We have to overwhelm this world. We have to be able to overwhelm the negativity in our environment. We have to be able to overwhelm our own shortcomings and defects in our own character. Does that make sense? Everyone with me?
You give everybody
Yes,
thanks.
sir. I was
Okay.
saying yes, sir, but I was still on mute.
That's okay. Okay. When you look at the process of auditing, or to be willing to go through the process of auditing, what you're saying is that you are willing to go through the process to overwhelm your own aberrated mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're willing to begin to fight with and overwhelm and overcome your reactive mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at how he words it here, as soon as I saw this, I said, okay, there's a cycle of action here, because when we get to a part where we no longer want to overwhelm anything in our life, then we're saying that I am unwilling to win in anything in life.
And we succumb, right?
Oh, that's exactly what's happening. So when you look at this as a cycle of action. So in other words, he says the first thing to do with regards to a problem is to confront it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you look at from the study guide, self-examination, self-analysis, self-correction, the first thing we do when we fail is we don't want to confront our own self in order to start the process of self-examination.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at this from the standpoint of the 8 steps of atonement, the first step is to point out the wrong, right? Mm-hmm. To acknowledge the wrong, to confess it, and then repent. The first part of that we're not able to do is to have the wrong pointed out. We're not going to acknowledge it. We won't confess it. Therefore, we won't repent, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're looking at this from the standpoint of the 8 steps of atonement, but we can also see this from the standpoint of the text. Really, what both boils down to is our inability to confront, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we don't want to look at ourselves. So once we become unwilling to overwhelm, really it means we're unwilling to begin to be cause in our own universe, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as soon as we determine not to be cause in our own universe, then we're saying is, I have no desire to win in my universe.
Hmm.
So we lose what's called pandeterminism. Now, pandeterminism, based on how he explained it, is to have determinism on all 8 dynamics. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone that does not understand pandeterminism with regards to the 8 dynamics? If you don't, I'd be more than happy to explain it real quick. Okay, we'll keep it moving then. So then what happens is when we lose pandeterminism, so we're no longer determined on the second dynamic of family. We're not determined on the third dynamic in the group. We're not determined on the fourth dynamic of humanity. We lose determinism with respect to the fifth dynamic, which is dealing with the life dynamic. In other words, based on how I perceive the fifth dynamic, I look at that as life science. I look at the sixth dynamic, which is MEST, matter, energy, space, and time. To me, that's like mathematics, physics, and astronomy. We lose the seventh dynamic, meaning we don't have the ability to deal with our spiritual life. And to lose determinism on the eighth dynamic means we have an ARC break with our God. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we lose determinism on all those, and now we're only determined on the first dynamic. And then what happens is we become other determined. Now, other determined means my universe is cause and I'm effect. Now I'm in chronic stimulation. Does that make sense?
Well, brother Lukeman, when you said that we just become concerned with the self-determinism and looking at it from where you're bringing it, it made me think about just being selfish.
That's one way to look at it.
I mean, if that's the way, it's another way to look at it, but from this aspect, I'm seeing it as just being selfish. So when you said what you said after that, I wasn't connecting the two, because when you're selfish, you will become restimulated. Okay, because you're only concerned with subjectiveness.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the goal is to be cause in your own universe. That means to be cause in your own reality. To be an individual that represents, because cause represents force and power, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our lessons say, make an owner, cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. Well, first we have to be God of our own universe before we can branch out to becoming God of the universe. Yes.
Yes.
Under the head God of the universe, I guess you could say. But when we're no longer cause or God in our own universe, our universe becomes God over us. And so everything that happens will trigger a response from us that we can't control. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Ani.
Okay, so the part I didn't understand was the decay, the sinking into self-determinism.
Okay, so as a cycle of action, when we lose what's called pandeterminism, now we're decreasing into self-determinism, means at one time we had control on all the dynamics, but now we only have control in one dynamic. Now, for us, if we're coming up out of aberration, becoming self-determined is a plus. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so now we get to self-determined. Okay, now that's a plus. Then we get out to pandeterminism. Now I have control. I'm controlling all these dynamics. But if we're going in the opposite direction, I just lost control, right?
Okay, yes.
So self-determinism with respect to pandeterminism is positive if you're coming up from other determined to self-determined to pan-determined, but it becomes negative if you're going down from pan-determined to self-determined. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, sir.
I got
Okay.
those definition for you on chat.
Okay.
Hmm.
Self-determined is good if you're coming from a point of being aberrated, because now you have control over your first dynamic. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's like, okay, I get hired. Okay, I can, so I have my own office. Okay, so I got promoted, I got my own office. Then I get promoted to the district. Oh, great. Now I have control over a lot of things. But now if I lose control over the district and they step me back in my office, is that a promotion or is that a demotion?
Emotion.
Emotion. Mhm.
Okay, it's a demotion.
Yes.
Okay, just
So
going to
then,
the, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
so then other determined, I see that as you're not focused on any one particular thing, you're scattered, you're being pulled in multiple directions all at once, and so you have no power at all.
Right. Other determined means my environment has determinism over me.
Mm-hmm.
So every little stimulator in my environment, so every time I'm driving down the highway, and we always use this as a funny thing, and I have an app, I don't actually have an app on my phone, but I'm just using it as an example. If I have the app on my phone and the hot sign comes up, the red sign comes up, where am I going?
To the red sign, to the donut place.
See, you know what I'm talking about. So now every little trigger that takes place, every time I'm looking at TV, I'm seeing commercials, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm being controlled. I have no control over my own willpower now because my universe is cause and I'm effect. I'm in chronic re-stimulation. Everything is re-stimulating me now.
Mm.
Does that make everything connect, Sister Anya?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. He says, by the mechanics of the overt act motivator sequence, a person doing a lot of overwhelming sometimes regrets having done so. Now, this is when we're trying to overwhelm other people. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
It just so happens, God willing, at another time, I'll show the actual facts on this, but the Arabic word for hypocrite describes almost exactly the characteristics of the suppressive personality.
Mm.
And a suppressive is trying to overwhelm everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we become overwhelmed, okay, he says sometimes the overwhelmed very commonly takes the winning valence, becomes the person object he has been overwhelmed by. Now, what does that mean? That means when we become overwhelmed, we become somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
When we are aberrated, when we are when we're dramatizing, are we not in another's valence?
Yes, sir, because we're not being ourselves by just thinking our way through it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm seeing, because that happened to me last night. I had to get on a conference call, and I was a little late because time got past me because I was doing something else, studying something else, and so I had to get the phone number and the ID to get on, and so after I got it, I have to look at my magnifier, I have to put my phone up under my magnifier so I can see. And then everything moves so slowly for me. So I'm getting a little anxious, but I had to stop myself. So I was becoming overwhelmed from having to do this task. So I had to stop myself. I had to reason with myself, calm myself down, and just tell myself, take my time. And there's this little prayer I say to myself to help me do that. And I did. But I had to reach inside myself and come outside of myself to conquer this task on the outside.
Right. Thank you, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir.
So you had mentioned being ourself. And what is our own self? It's a righteous Muslim, right?
Yes, sir.
When we're re-stimulated, do we act like a righteous Muslim?
No, sir, because I was getting ready to throw my phone. So no, sir.
When we're re-stimulated, do we act like the maker, the owner, the creator of the planet Earth, and God of the universe?
No, sir.
So we become somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
When I read this, I said, wait a minute. I said, this connects to the four flows. Because when we become re-stimulated, look how us being re-stimulated connects. Because flow one is what? What has been done to us, right?
Yes, sir.
So when you look at what has been done to us, there was a dominant valence in that incident, correct?
Yes, sir.
9 times out of 10, like he said, sometimes the overwhelm, he said very commonly, takes the winning valence. So in our own personal life, when we become aberrated or re-stimulated, we take on that valence that dominated us. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we look at this from the perspective of flow number 2, what we do to others, then we become the dominant valence to other people. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you look at flow number 3, what we witness between others, this is where we learn about the dominant behavior, correct? By watching other people, one person was dominant, and the other person was being suppressed. And that's how we learned about the dominant valence. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And if you look at flow 0, so we become dominant towards our own self and wind up suppressing our own self. And we put, like the ministers say, we'll put our own foot in our own way, correct?
Yes, sir. What we do to ourselves.
What
Yes,
we
sir.
do to ourselves. Does everyone see how that all connects?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's look at this concept of system of facsimiles. So this is based on, again, something that was in the text. So the question is asked in the extension course, what do we call this whole system of facsimiles? And we look at the word system. System is a regularly interacting or independent group of items forming a unified whole. Okay. It's a group of interacting bodies under the influence of related forces. A group of related natural related objects or forces. It's an organized set of doctrines, ideas, or principles usually intended to explain the arrangement or working of a systematic whole. When you look at the engram bank, when you look at the reactive mind, and you look at the number of valences that are present, can we not say that our reactive mind is not a group of individuals that are forming a unified whole?
Yes, sir.
In other words, our engram bank is a composite of multiple valences. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's a group of individuals, some that may no longer be present among us and some that might still be present. But if we have those individuals, if we have those valences in our engram bank, then we also have the doctrine, the ideas, and the principles that those people represented, correct? So some of the things that we say and some of the things that we do are not our words and they're not our behaviors and actions and activities. They belong to individuals that we contain in our on our time track based on the valences of individuals from our past. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So our reactive mind, our engram bank, we can say that it represents a system of facsimiles. In other words, it's multiple valences communicating together at one time. And that's why our mind sometimes is so messed up, because we have all these things going through our mind at the same time. Does that kind of, has anyone ever experienced that before?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I experience that sometimes on the prayer rug.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm making prayer and my mind goes somewhere else. And then I'm at a certain point in my prayer and I say, okay, how did I get here? I don't remember what I said before
Mhm.
getting to this point because my mind drifted off to all those other whatever ideas in my head,
Mhm.
concept, whatever.
Have you ever, do you remember that movie called, remember Bruce Almighty?
Yes, I saw that.
Okay. Remember when he he was receiving all the prayers at one time and he had all these voices going through his head and it was driving him crazy. All the people
Ye-
were praying, asking him for certain things and doing certain things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you were speaking, that's the image that came to my mind. That sometimes we're in prayer or sometimes we're just, trying to do other things and we get all these things that come through our mind. Is it possible that some of these thoughts coming through our mind are thoughts that were passed down to us?
Mm.
Okay. These are just some of the things I think about. So does
Mhm.
everyone understand what a system of facsimiles are? Or the system of facsimiles, what it is?
Mhm. Now, facsimile is a copy, like a copy. So that's what I'm picturing in my head, a system of copies, a whole lot of different copies that
Right,
we have collected in our mind.
right. So that facsimile is the way he describes it, it's a three-dimensional image that contains all the perceptives. So it's
Okay.
not just a picture, it's a three-dimensional image with all the sounds, all the smells, all the flavors, all those perceptives. And that's what our time
Is a
travel
recording.
is, a recording, but not only does it record the visual and the sonic, but it records body position, weight, gravity, smell, taste. It records everything. And if you look at the way it describes the time track and all those perceptics, it's equivalent to where in the Holy Quran it talks about each one of us have our own book. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Because
Okay.
I'm looking at it as a
Mm-hmm.
different movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if it's three-dimensional instead of a copy. Okay.
Right. So the facsimile really is like a movie. It's a visual that has all the perceptives. And this is why, and I know is Sister Angela still on? She might have left. Sister Patricia, are you still on?
No, sir, she's not on. I mean, no, she's not on.
Okay. How
Mr.
about
Patricia's on.
okay. Sister Patricia, have you ever experienced auditing someone and the auditing was being done so well with the perceptics that it was like you watching a TV show while you're auditing or watching a movie while you were auditing? That you actually saw the time track? She with us? I can see it.
She's on mute. Her mic is on mute.
Okay. Well, anyone that has audited, I know I've experienced it, and this is why the auditor needs to be audited. That as we're auditing and we're pulling up all these perceptics, you begin. It's almost like you are watching the movie in real time as it's happening. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. You're seeing what's taking place. And this is another reason why I think Brother Eric can attest to this. This is why an individual that's auditing someone, they have to be at a certain tone level so that they can handle the images that they're being seen. Because if your tone level is a certain place, you may get re-stimulated while you're auditing someone else. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay. All right, let's keep it moving. In our lessons, this is what popped in my mind, a society of men or groups of men for one common cause. We've seen that before, right? It's Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why does the devil keep our people apart from his social equality?
Mm-hmm.
That's like saying, why does the reactive mind try to keep us away from the engram?
Mm.
Want us to know how filthy he is in all his affairs. Isn't that kind of like describing the engram?
It does. It does.
He keeps them blind to themselves, right?
So that he can master them.
Right. So when you look at the description of the devil in Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, it's really describing the characteristics of the reactive mind.
Hmm.
You know, when we learn about him, won't we run him from among us?
Yes, sir.
So when we learn about the engram, won't we run that engram?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm.
So then the question came to mind, could the tree of Zakum be the equivalent to our own system of facsimiles? Now, you see that the image right there? You see how those buds on that plant actually look like a face?
Mm.
That's the tree of Zakum. That's a real thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's real. If you type in Google and you Google tree of Zakum, it's a real plant, and that's what the buds look like. They look like a face of a person that is screaming.
Wow. Looks
That's,
like a mask.
yeah, that's real. That's a real thing.
Wow.
Okay. That actually exists.
That is so ugly.
Yeah. So when we look at, let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
Don't worry about it.
Say what?
I said, don't worry about it. That was my little brother, so
Oh, okay.
I'll not destroy him.
So who has a Holy Quran handy?
I do have one online right now.
Okay. Can you pull up Surah 37, ayat number 62?
37, 62.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
See, my machine is afraid of what you say. So it refuses to turn on. Come on. Okay, my machine is giving me trouble now.
Does someone cooperate?
That's okay. Anyone else got the Quran handy?
I got it now.
Okay, 37 and 62.
Okay, 37, 62.
Brother, look, my mind says, is this the better entertainment or the tree of Zaquin?
Yes, yes.
Okay. It says, surely those who believe and the Christian and the Sabians, whoever believes in Allah and the last days, and those good, they have their reward with their Lord, and there is no fear for them, nor shall they grieve.
Where are you reading that, brother Eric?
You told me 3762, isn't it?
3762, yes.
Hold on. Let me make sure that's what it is. Yeah, that's what.
It may be off a verse because of the addition.
Yeah, you're right. So let me go back here. So you're starting on. So what are you showing as Surah 37, ayat 62, brother Eric?
That's the one that I read.
Okay, it should start out by saying, is this the better entertainment or the tree of Zakum?
Okay. At this point, I better pull the book.
So it says, is this the better entertainment or the tree of Zakum? Surely we have made it a trial for the wrongdoers. It is a tree that grows in the bottom of hell. It produces as it were the heads of serpents. Then truly they will eat of it and fill their bellies with it. Then surely they shall have after it a drink of boiling water. Then their return is surely to the flaming fire. Then it says, they indeed found their fathers astray, So in the footsteps, they are hastening on. So if you look at what's being said in that passage, that quick passage, it's describing the tree of Zakum as something that grows in the bottom of hell. Could we say, if it's growing in the bottom of hell and it produces heads that were like serpents, could we say that this tree of Zakum could be used as a demo kit to represent individuals or valences on our time track?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at where it says, then their return is surely to the flaming fire, wouldn't that be like returning to the events on the time track? In other words, being restimulated?
Yes, sir.
They indeed found their fathers astray. Well, wouldn't that be flow number one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it represents the individuals on the time track that were going astray. So in the footsteps, could the footsteps represent us manifesting? Because some people say, you're walking right in his footsteps, meaning now I'm doing exactly what those individuals did on my time track.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in their valence now. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let us go to.
And I apologize. My computer did take me to the wrong.
That's okay. Not a problem. Your computer's got a held down 7. That's okay.
Correct. I did not feed it this morning.
Okay. Okay. Now, if we go to Surah 44.
Okay. 44, 39.
And then go to ayat number 43.
41, 43, 44. And what ayat?
Go ahead.
What ayat you say?
43.
Oh, 43, okay. Surely the tree of Zakum is the food of the sinful. Like molten brass, it seethes in their bellies like boiling water. I went a little bit past what you asked for.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Oh,
Go up to 51.
okay. In their belly, like boiling water, seize him, then drag him into the midst of hell, then pour on his head of the torment of boiling water. Whoa. Taste, thou art forsooth the mighty, the honorable. Surely this is what you doubted. Those who keep their duty are indeed in a secure place,
Okay.
in gardens and springs, wearing fine and thick silk, facing one another.
Sounds like auditing.
Thus shall be, and we shall join them to pure, beautiful ones. They call therein for every fruit in security. They taste not therein death, except the first death, and he will save them from the chastisement of hell. And that's it.
So now when you look at that,
there is 2 more. There is 3 more ayat that is on another page.
Well, go ahead and finish it up then, brother.
Where is that in the Holy Quran?
That's Surah 44, starting at ayat number 43.
Okay, the last 3 says, a grace from thy Lord, this is the great achievement. So we have made it easy in thy tongue that they may mind. What then? Surely they too are waiting.
Okay. Now, when you look at this, when you look at these ayats, I'm only going to deal with the first couple of them. If now there's something called a what if analysis. So when we ask what if, what we're doing is we're asking questions that are outside the circumference of our activity. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Yes,
The
sir.
minister said, whoever controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity. But when we say what if everything inside the circumference represents what we know, what if represents what we don't know at that time, but something that we wish to learn, right? Something new, correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
So as soon as we plot a point outside the circumference of our activity, aren't we forming a new diameter?
Mm.
And if we produce a new diameter, what happens to the circumference?
It becomes wider.
So our knowledge base becomes wider when we ask the what if questions, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what if the tree of Zakum represents the reactive mind? What if if we're looking at this picture, you see those faces?
Mm-hmm.
What if that tree of Zakum is a demo kit for the collection of people on our time track that were based on flow one?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that did things to us.
What
That
about all the others?
Yeah, ugly things.
okay,
Ugly things.
that's our time track.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now the way I'm looking at these ayats, this is just me, my humble opinion. Okay, the tree of Zakum, it is the food of the sinful. So if we are continuing to do overts, if we're continuing to live a certain lifestyle, then we are going to continually feed off of our reactive mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then how would you feel if someone put boiling water on your head? You'd grab your head and you'd be in pain, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the same reaction a person has when they're going through a mental breakdown? They grab their head.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay. Seize him. Okay. Now that means see, when you look at seize, now that means occluded. I'm stuck. Drag
Oh,
him
wow.
into the midst of hell. I'm going down the tone scale.
You bought something else right there.
Okay. So then so this is describing to me an allegorical way of what happens when we become re-stimulated, we dramatize, and we're going down the tone scale. This is allegory. Surely
Mm-hmm.
this is what you doubted. So the minister gave you the text, but you doubted the minister.
Mm.
Those who
Isn't
keep
that
their
what we are?
duty, those who follow the text, they're in a secure place. Well, how do you know what the secure place is? Well, they're sitting facing one another.
Mm-hmm.
They're in session. See how
Mm-hmm.
this all connects?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Indeed, isn't that what we are witnessing right now to see how many people are going crazy
Oh,
Yes.
it's definitely happening.
and committing suicide and everything else?
Mhm. It's because they're being overwhelmed. We're being overwhelmed. Does everyone follow what we just talked about with Surah 44?
Right?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Right.
let's keep it moving.
Also, you sent us a little video that was talking about that new Earth.
Uh, was that from Mother Tanetta?
No, not that one. It could have been, but as I watched it and I came back to watch it again, I couldn't find it nowhere on my phone, not on my computers.
Hmm. Okay, I got to figure out what it is. I got to start recording them because the one with Mother Tanetta talking about out of body experiences is gone, but I have it recorded. So, but
Cool.
I'll see if we can track that down.
This one was indeed dealing with some of what you just said. Uh, that
like devils.
when you get to a certain level, it seems like you are living in a different
Mm-hmm.
aura. And at that point, everything is not like you knew it. It's a new heaven and new earth.
I got to figure out what that was, but so I can find it. So I'll see if I can track it down.
And two different people sent it to me, and I couldn't find it from either one.
Okay.
All right, so that means there must be some
Yeah,
truth in it.
sometimes, when things start to happen and people start to, increase and grow, they have to get rid of those things that are, they got to put more of the crazy stuff on it to get us back into our aberrated mind again.
And that's the same thing they do with my little program. They say, well, in certain countries, we cannot introduce that because Google don't have any musical rights. I said, oh,
Yep.
what does that to do with me? I have no music in my.
That's just an excuse. That's all that is.
Yeah.
So, so let's look a little bit more into this tree of Zakun. I think this is where we start to wrap it up. But there's a specific ayah I want to deal with. And this is, oh no, this is it, but we're gonna go in a little more detail. Okay. Surely the tree of Zakum is the food of the sinful. Like molten brass, it seethed in their bellies like boiling water. Seize him, then drag him into the midst of hell. Then pour in his head the torment of boiling water. Taste, thou art forsooth the mighty, the honorable. Surely this is what you doubted. Okay, this is what we just covered. And then the question is, could this be an allegorical way to describe the state of aberration of mental illness? Could we agree on that?
It's a possibility, yeah.
Possibility. Okay, possibility. So now let's connect the tree of Zakum and the system of facsimiles.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, we want to look at is Surah 17, ayat number 68 to ayat number 69. Okay. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Do you feel secure that He will not bring you low on a tract of land or send on you a violent wind? Then you will not find a protector for yourselves. Or do you feel secure that He will not take you back into another time? Then send on you a fierce gale and thus overwhelm you for your ungratefulness. Then you will not find any aider against us in the matter. Now, the key words in here are those that are in orange. Now, I want us to do a little exercise. You can take a little piece of scrap paper out, write down the 5 parts of the cycle of action: start, growth, conservation, decay, and stop. All I want you to locate is, if this represents aberration, what would be the start? What would be the start? What starts this process? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, on one level, there really is no one correct answer. I have my perception, but your perception might be different, but it doesn't mean that your perception is wrong. So if this is describing aberration, where's the starting point on the cycle of action?
Bring you low on a tract of land.
Okay. Bring you low on a tract of land. So why would you say that that's the start, in your opinion?
Because that's the beginning of coming down from the state where you already are.
Okay. I can accept that. Anyone else? No one, no takers?
The key word in what you ask is the word aberration.
I looked at it, I was looking at this, but then what stuck out to me was being ungrateful.
Right. Gratefulness. Yes, sir. That will bring you low. That's
right. So our being ungrateful is the starting point of us, all these other things happening, because we're ungrateful. We're not showing Allah the respect that Allah deserves for being ungrateful.
Yes, sir. I see that exactly. Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
Or being ignorant about it.
What do you think is this? Huh?
I mean, an ignorant, it doesn't mean that they don't know. They do know, that they ignore what they know. Almost as a rejection.
Wow. So being ungrateful, when I'm looking at the tone scale, that's going down below 2.0. So if I'm already at, let's say I'm already at 2.5, you know, Yeah, being ungrateful, because then I'm starting to be brought low on a track, of
Mhm.
land. Yeah, ungrateful. Yes, sir, brother Lukeman.
Okay. Again, there's no one right answer, I don't believe, because all of these can be the start. So where it says take you back into another time, how do you see that statement? What does that represent with the tech?
Going back on the time track.
Going back on the time track. Okay. So the way I looked at this is just me. Okay. Bring you low. I thought, okay, that means you're being brought low on the tone scale, right?
Yes, sir.
When I looked at the track, I was thinking about the time track.
But thank you, brother. Look, man, you bring something heavy now.
Praise be to Allah.
If you look at it in the religious world or spiritual world, what are we doing? We're bringing the people, we say to God, okay, but we take that on the spook level.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, what they're saying is to bring the people back to their sanity. Because when you become sane, you can see things as they are, and also you can operate at a level that is really acceptable to all.
Mm-hmm.
But we have fall into a state of insanity, and that's why spiritually, mentally, morally, we say there is a death, and the people that are living are really in a death condition
Mm-hmm.
that caused God to send either messengers, prophets, and to the point he had to show himself up.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that's not normal for my people to live insane. And this is what you are addressing, because why are we auditing people? Some of us just see, okay, to remove engram. What does that mean? When you can help the person to release engrams or to release the burden of the condition of the mind, it brings that person to a point of sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point of sanity, the person can perform better and can, by performing better, it become more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what we learned?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister brought that 2.0. I had to pull my chat. 2.0 is right here. When you are at that level, you are antagonizing.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants that? Nobody, because you want to have to feel better. Yet, once you go below that, you're being hostile to others, hostile to yourself. And hostility brings pain, because you're going to be knocking each other with the fist or with the whatever instrument you get. And
You mean like Yakub causing them to fight and kill one another?
that's right. That's exactly it. After pain, below pain is anger. Have you ever seen people in anger act rationally? You become irrational.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you are at that level, it brings another one that is called hate. I hate you. And once you get at that level, say there is nothing good that can happen. But above the 2.0, we have a level of monotony. Everybody is monotone. Well, I hear him talking. I hear let him talk. and you really don't have life at that level. And above monotony is boredom. Have you ever heard the children say, "I'm bored"?
Mhm.
Have you ever been in a place that you say, "Oh man, that is boring"?
Mhm.
All right, so that means your tone level is going down. And above that, you are disinterested. I'm not interested at all in what you're saying. I don't need to know about what you have. So, everything is real. Oh God, but look, when you bought a lot of things right there. And this is the point that we are trying to reach the 3.0. Now you have a strong interest in life at 3.0. So that means now you start living. But the real thing you want to reach is a 4.0, where you become enthusiastic about life. So that means everything you're doing, you can see the enthusiasm from that person. And but look, when you were talking about those little whatever you call them in your forehead,
The
and
wrinkles in your forehead.
wrinkles, yes, those wrinkles, it tells me there is something that is not right. And if I'm auditing, I'm looking. This is exactly what I'm looking for: the wrinkles, and also the meanness in the face or the mouth, the way it is. And I know something is there. But once you reach a good point, you will see, as you said, those things are disappearing, and the person's face become brighter, and all of a sudden you start seeing a smile, and sometimes even a little laughter. So now it tells you it's time to stop your audit. Whatever is left, we can take it for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, you say, well,
Are you in present time?
eh,
Come to present time.
up to present time.
Cancel.
Are you in present time? And the person is, if he does not answer, that means he's not.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have to find a way to bring him to present time. And if I say, are you in present time? Yes. Okay, that's why you ask, okay, where are you now? Oh, what day is it today?
Mm-hmm.
And things of that sort. Now the person will give you an answer. If that answer that given, that is not conform to the what you know, something is there. So now you have to go continue with your session on present, being present on present time.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to you during that time? Because I see you cannot uh, come in agreement with time. You're not going to say it like that, but you're going to continue to see how you can make that person see the time.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, once the person come up, okay, end of session. And that's about it. And thank you for this. Yeah, I will recommend all of you to get one of those chart. It doesn't cost much. I think they sell it for $10 at the org.
Mm-hmm.
You have it because you go every day on it to check. This is death. Death is really, but this is the worst part of it. And when you get to this point, it's what is it? 0.0 body death. Now you are operating at the level of a dead body. And would you believe there are people who are living below that? You blame yourself, you regret things, you owning body approval, body and things of that sort. That's why some people are stuck so much in their body, but trying to buy false makeup, long eyelash, false hair, false boobs, false behind. All these things show you where the person is from this. And unfortunately, we have a lot of our believers registered believers who are in those conditions.
Brother Eric, let me pose this question toward you.
Yes, sir.
If you go sub-zero on a tone scale, pretty much Dianetics don't work over there, does it?
The only way you need somebody who's skilled with the can.
Okay, so now let me ask you this question. Is it possible that when we're taught that message to the black man was a wake-up message, we couldn't get the tech because we were so below zero, we had to have a message that would get us up to the point where we could come in contact with the tech?
Hold on. You remember they say what is the word? The word we say is a life-giving teaching. Life-giving teaching. How do you teach that life giving? It's through the words coming from who? From the exalted one. And you say that word has what?
Light, life, and power.
So now, and this is where you have to refer to the proverb of Lazarus being resurrected. He was in the cave, and then with the word, Jesus called him out. Jesus did not go and pull him out and touch him to say, he called him out, come forth. Million Men March is an example of that. Jesus called Lazarus from the cave, come forth. And to make sure that we understood that, he said, I'm not paying for nobody's way. You have to find your way in. Did Lazarus come? Yes. But what happened to Lazarus after he was resurrected? They said Satan went back after him and trying to kill him again. Wanted to kill him. Because the resurrection of Lazarus itself means the end of the control of Satan. And that's why he has he's using all the power that he has to see how he can stop that from happening. But it is impossible.
That's called social media.
That's right. But the word of God has not remained only here in America. It's not only with the registered members of the Nation of Islam anymore. The word has gone forth, and that's why if you look at it in Africa, you see a few governments that install themselves based on the teaching of the Muslim Elijah Muhammad and the minister. And in the Caribbean, you have a few also who are rising based on what they know from this teaching. And even in Arabia, who was very, how do you call that, negative toward that. Now they start seeing the truth. And I even hear some Jews themselves, they're not these are, I'm talking about the Jews, not the so-called Jews. They bear witness to Elijah and Farrakhan. I don't know if you remember, I think it was 2017 or 2016, when the rabbi and a few of them came to our Savior's Day. And they spoke on the podium. And everybody would thought that's something that would have been impossible. So now this is to prove to us again, the teaching is not against the Jews. It's against those of them who are of the satanic mind. And those, you call them the Zionists, as I have come to know. And look at the condition of the world right now. Who has the power in this world? Financially, intellectually, spiritually, medically, and everything everywhere. They are sitting on top. Do they have the power to stop something? If they were willing, yes, they could have stopped it just like that. But they are the one perpetrating and perpetrating also whatever the condition of the world is. Well, like Shabazz, say, if I cannot make you all speak the same language, I'm going to destroy you all. I'll blow you up. He blew the planet. Now we got the moon. And we got that part that, thank God, we were still on. The same way they know, oh, okay, you want to destroy us? I'll blow the planet. You don't know how many of those atomic bombs they place under the ground to blow if they cannot overcome. But I heard I did not hear from the messenger, but I heard some believers say, I think I heard the minister say it, they would not have a chance to press what we call the button. So that means there is a great security there. And we also learned that when they're thinking about doing atomic war, I heard the minister say they won't have a chance to do it.
Yes, sir.
At that point, if I am a believer, and I am, I don't need to know how. I don't need to know when. All I need to know is that they say they won't have a chance to do it. That is comforting.
Yes, sir.
And those who are promoting that kind of life, these are the ones that Allah says He will drag them into the lake of fire. I don't know how it's going to be done, and I don't need to know. I just hope you and I are not of those who are going to be dragged to it. You see? And that's why I pay attention to every little detail. I am not a great scholar. I'm not a great scientist, but based on the teaching, it gives me common sense. And that is sufficient for me. Pay attention to this.
Yes, sir.
There is a lot of it, a lot in it that can be understood, and that in itself can help us. You see, the good thing about this thing, as you get to the below the 2.5, I mean, from 2.5 down, you see they start changing the mood of those little design. You see, they become a warrior like in red, blood. And now, covert hostility. So, you know, many of us in this life, and even from the believers, some of us deal with a lot of covert hostility. And at that point, the 1.1 is said to be the most dangerous person that can ever exist on the planet.
And what's the reason for that?
Covert hostility. That
Yeah,
means,
but I mean, they're hateful.
well, that's the point. He doesn't even know why he hate things. He just want to do things. It be
Negative stuff.
to hurt people, and that's all he does. And try to undermine everything positive that is being done. And that's why you have people, you got friends, you think, oh, our friend, they come to your house and they're destroying your house in a way that you don't even know.
Until after you see it.
Until after you say, how did that happen? we give them a ride. Next thing you know, your seats are ripped.
Cut up over.
Oh man, these are the one these are the dangerous one, the 1.1. The other one, at least you know where they are. But anxiety, everybody can have it. Once you, if you are where is your anxiety come from?
Anger.
Why are you there?
Angry.
So that means you have to. That's why we are taught about the self-analysis. But even before you go to self-analysis, there is another step that the messenger gave us.
What's that?
Self-examination.
Oh, okay.
Do we take time to examine ourselves? I know it's easy for me to see what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy for me to see, oh, that person is a hypocrite, that person is an agent, that person is a thief, that person is all of that and then some. But what about me? What do I know about myself? What can I tell you about myself that is really true? Because when it comes to the self, we are like the moon, exactly. We want to show only one side of it.
Yes, sir.
See the side that is receiving light. You see, I'm reflecting light to you. But if you want to be one of those astronauts to go behind the moon to see what's there, what would anyone discover of me? And
Good on time, Brother Eric.
good. If they discover it, will I be happy about it? Anyway, so I did not want to hijack your.
No. Hey, if we have more time, I have no problem. We're coming up on the 3-hour mark.
Good. Allahu Akbar.
So based on where you just left off at, brother, that has to be part of the discussion that we have on Saturday.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
We have to go to the flag of Islam on Saturday, God willing.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Eric.
Don't forget to call me because on Saturday, yes, I got my little program on Saturday.
Right.
That's only my difficult moment.
Yes, sir. Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. From some of the things Brother Eric said, and you asking that question about going way down in the negative zeros on the tone scale, that us needing a wake up message. I found that to be very interesting. That question you posed, and looking at the current events that's taking place, with the hellish behavior that's being exposed, among our people, our brothers and sisters, and looking at those who are really the cause, those who are responsible. I find it very interesting that the tree of Zakum is mentioned in the Israelites. And so I'm going to have to go to that whole surah and read that. It's in the Israelites, and the and the tree of Zakum, it looks just like a Satan. That face looks like a Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir.
Key point of what Brother Eric was talking about is when you look at the world leaders right now and you look at their behavior, as Brother Eric is talking about, if we look specifically at 1.1, but really any of those overt hostility, antagonistic or covert hostility, those individuals are bearing witness that there's a whole lot of things dormant on their time track, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we could say it's possible. All Allah has to do to wipe this whole thing out is to produce what's called in the Holy Quran an overwhelming event.
Mm-hmm.
And even those that have all that money's not going to save them from their aberrated mind. Allah can just do one thing and wipe this whole thing out.
Mm-hmm.
Because these individuals in leadership are leading based on an aberrated thinking, which means their tree of Zakum has a whole lot of fruit on it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and land this plane here. Okay. So where we leave off at, if we look at could the violent wind and the fierce gale, could that represent events that take place in our life that cause restimulation?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Could the protector or could the aider represent the auditor?
Yes, sir. It could represent.
Okay. And then when it says back into another time, we're talking about being stuck on the time track, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to overwhelm, that would be equivalent to someone being aberrated, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, heavily.
All right, let's make this quick. So if we looked at this as a cycle of action, this is just the way I perceived it. Like I said, if you this cycle of action can be interpreted in many different ways. But for me, this whole thing starts with being aberrated. It starts with us being ungrateful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, again, there's no right or wrong answer. This is just the way I was looking at it. So when we're ungrateful, what happens? Allah will send a violent wind and a fierce gale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now here's the thing, I can't remember exactly where the ayat is, but Allah says in the Holy Quran that He uses the trials to destroy the disbelievers, but He uses the same trials to purify the believers. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So all of us have to go through trials, but they will affect us in different ways based upon whether we are a believer or a disbeliever, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the violent wind and the fierce gale is coming for all of us, but specifically for the ungrateful, what happens? It's going to bring the ungrateful low.
Mm.
Okay. It's going to overwhelm them, and they're not going to be able to find a protector or aider. So you see how we took that ayat and we broke it up into a cycle of action?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for the believer, if our start was believer, then send a violent wind and fierce gale would be the same, except what would be outcome? We would not be brought low, or we could be brought low, but we're not overwhelmed. Why? Because we have a protector and an aider. So since we're not ungrateful to Allah, He places people in our lives that can get us back up the tone scale. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the Arabic, bring you low on a tract of land. So based on the Arabic, the word yakshifa, it comes from the root word khasafa. It means to sink, to go down, baseness, ignominy, disgrace, shame, or to be degraded. So isn't the enemy bringing us low right now? As Sister Ania was describing, this is what's taking place, right? Through social media.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
some of
sir.
us are being swallowed by it.
Oh, absolutely.
We're being swallowed by social media. So
Mm.
the question is, when Jonah was swallowed by the fish, was that an actual fish, or does that fish represent something?
It represents something.
Fish
Okay,
represents.
that fish could be heroin.
Hmm.
That fish could be fast food. That fish could represent anything that we get swallowed by, correct?
Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. When it says what are you fishing for? It means what you're looking for, right?
Yes, sir.
And so what happens is what people go fishing for, that what they go fishing for is what swallows them.
Mm.
So you go fishing for the heroin. Now the heroin, it gets you. Now you're in the power of the heroin. So
Mm.
Jonah being swallowed by the fish, could that be the same thing as saying interbulated?
Mm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because when we're interbulated, are we not stuck now in mess?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the fish could represent the mesh universe. Okay, and then when you look at the tract of land, you know, Janaba means to keep away, to avoid a portion or a part. So don't we try to stay away from our past?
Hmm.
Some of us don't want to be audited because we don't want to deal with what happened in the past, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then when you look at the word track, Janaba also means scene or picture. Isn't that the same as a facsimile?
Mm.
So we're going to bring you low on a tract of land is like the same thing as saying we're going to cause you to sink into disgrace and shame. We're going to cause you to become swallowed. That's present time on a tract of land. What do you mean on a tract of land? Based on pictures and scenes that we should be avoiding. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The word tract means a bundle of nerve fibers having a common origin, termination, and function. It also means an extent or lapse of time. Well, isn't the reactive mind based on the nervous system?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He says the engram represents the body. Where is our anxieties recorded? They're recorded in the nervous system. But it's also an extent or lapse of time. So do you see the connection between bring you low on a tract of land and how this relates to the tech?
Yes, sir.
There's going to be images that are going to bring us into a debate system that Sister Ani was describing. We're going to be brought low. We're going to be swallowed by this world. This world overwhelms us, but we have to be able to overwhelm this world, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then when you look at the violent wind and the fierce gale, well, violent wind in Arabic, the Arabic word is comes from the Arabic root word hasaba, which means stones or pebbles, or a violent wind that raises pebbles. Well, when you throw stones, aren't those criticisms?
Yes,
People
sir.
that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, correct?
Go ahead.
Okay. So now, but this violent wind represents criticisms that are coming from within us. Well, aren't those called circuits?
Yes,
Come
sir.
on.
And when people are throwing stones at us, won't that cause restimulation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So when people are criticizing us, or when we are criticizing ourselves, flow zero, we're being invalidated by throwing our flaws and our weaknesses in our face, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, that could be the violent wind. But what's the fierce gale? Fierce gale in Arabic means to break, harass, or oppress. So now when you look at these politicians, aren't they throwing stones and pebbles at one another?
Yes, sir. Mm. Mm.
So the violent wind and fierce gale could represent being overcome by emotions as a result of our flaws or things being thrown in our face, all the things that take place within ourselves. So we're constantly reminding ourselves of our flaws, and then we have individuals constantly reminding us of the things that we used to do. We have to be at tone 40. And if you understand what tone 40 means you have control in the presence of those that are originating things or criticizing. It's the same thing as we described with Minister Farrakhan being like a burning bush. You have the emotion, but you don't let the emotion consume you to say or do things that you're going to regret. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
That comes with the tech. So what does protector and aider represent? Well, the word protector comes from the Arabic root word wakil, and it means to entrust, to put someone in charge of, or to be on a confidential basis. Well, isn't that describing the auditor?
Yes.
You're entrusting them with secrets, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the word aider comes from the Arabic root word tabia, which means a trail or a track. It means to enter a road or a course. So can we say a protector and an aider is like the same as saying an auditor is able to handle the time track?
Yes, sir.
Isn't the time track aiding the auditor?
Yes, sir.
Enter into the event.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It means to be in agreement. Well, we know that means ARC, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You have to be an ARC with your auditor. Otherwise, there's going to be an ARC break. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So does this mean that one will not be? So the people that are ungrateful, that don't value what the minister has said, you know, they're not going to be able to access their track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That's right.
That's the same as an occluded case. And then I think this might be where we're going to bring this to an end. Send you back to another time. Well, it means send you back. It means to return, to repeat again, to be traceable, to revert someone, to search one's soul, to start something all over again. Well, if you do it as one who's in the tech, the auditor is having you repeat that event over and over again, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're repeating it again. You're searching the soul. Searching the soul and going back on the time track is the same thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go back to the beginning. Go over it again. Pick whatever additional data you can contact, right?
Yes.
Auditor is constantly sending you back in order to get the charge off of the event so you can come up the tone scale so that event is refiled in standard memory, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
But for the aberrated person, they constantly go back into the event, but they keep reliving it over and over, but they're not getting the charge off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They
Yes.
repeat that event over and over again, and they're constantly being re-stimulated, but they have no relief, yes?
Yes, sir.
So all of us are going to be sent back on our time track, whether we go through willingly or unwillingly, but we can either go back and revisit all that we've gone through in order to have the charge removed and have it refiled, or we are going to be returned to it and it's going to cause us to break. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we're going back into another time that will be repeated, that is traceable, that reverts someone. So we're either going to be reverted or converted into someone who is tone 40 positive. And that tone scale that Brother Eric showed us, I believe it goes to negative 40.
Mm.
So you have negative 40 and then you have positive 40.
Mm.
Okay.
God, Satan.
Yes, basically.
Mm.
So this whole process is describing auditing as well as re-stimulation. Can you see how that represents both? This ayat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everyone has to return. All of us have to go back to basic. Some will go back to basic and have someone there that can get them out, and some will go back to basic and no one's going to be there.
Mm.
Okay. That's the end of that. I just wanted to show us one last thing. Sister Tina, you have something?
Yes, sir. Just two things that came to me. The ungratefulness. I have heard that um depression is the absence of gratitude. Has anyone heard that?
That sounds familiar.
Depression is the absence of gratitude. So when we are not grateful, and I know this from my own psychic, my own experience. When I find that I'm becoming depressed, I have to look at, okay, why am I becoming depressed? Okay, then I have to count what I'm grateful for, and I will come up out of that. Mm-hmm. So the ingratitude, the ungratefulness, that is definitely the beginning. In my view, I see it the same way you do, Brother Lukman. That is the beginning of all those other events that takes place in that verse. You know, because depress, you come down, you go down, and it just gets worse after that. until we become grateful.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is what Sister Ania was describing, the parade, and then she mentioned the minister. If he were to walk through there, another thought came to my mind at that time. And then as this presentation went on, the thought became more prevalent, is that the time is coming when the minister will walk through people who would normally try to straighten up,
Mm-hmm.
but Satan is preparing an atmosphere for the people not to even remember any good that he has done, the nation has done. And they will throw the rocks and the spitting and all that like they did with Jesus
Mm-hmm.
when he was crucified.
Mm-hmm.
So that also came to my mind, that time is coming when that's going to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, most definitely. And this last part, I'll make this very, very brief. This is something that will come in the future. Thank you, Sister Tina, for that, by the way.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah.
This is something that's coming down the pipeline. If you have your Holy Quran, open to Surah 113. And this is what triggered this memory was something that Sister Tina said earlier. Study guide number 9 is our intimate relationship with Rabbil Alameen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now in Surah number 113, it starts out with, in the Arabic is Qul a'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. Okay, so you have Rabbil Falaq. Okay, I seek refuge in the Lord of the Dawn. So this is like another attribute, Rabbil Falaq. Now, when you look at the Arabic, okay, Falaq, it says in the footnote 1a, says Falaq signifies the daybreak, meaning primarily cleaving or splitting. The daybreak being so called because it cleaves through the darkness. Hence, it comes to signify the plain appearing of the truth after it's having been dubious. Now, there's other definitions for this word falak. And when you look at the other definitions, it would lead you to see or think, at least in my humble opinion, Rabbil Falak, the Lord of the Dawn, it is almost as if it's describing that this time period where we're in, where the mental trials begin, of course, Allah has to be at the root of it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Rabbil Falak. He is going to be the one who's at the root of this separation of the wheat from the tare. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you look at from the evil of that which he has created, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he here represents Yaqub. Has anyone ever seen that before?
Yes.
I've seen Closing the Gap. Yes, sir.
Closing the gap, and I think it might also
Closing
be
the Gap.
the black man, but it is closing the gap. Okay. Now there's only I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but when you look at from the evil of intense darkness when it comes, will be Rabbil Falak min sharri ma khalaq. The Arabic is wa min sharri ghasaqin idda waqab. When you look at the word ghasaqin, if you look at footnote 3a,
Yes.
it says it's intense darkness.
What are you trying to ask me?
But it says
Can
difficulties.
somebody turn their phone on mute? Can
So what are
somebody
you trying to ask me?
So
Are you trying to get to my tablet?
Peggy, can you turn your phone on
I'm
mute?
sorry.
okay. So if you look at 3a, it says gasaka is derived from gasak, which signifies intense darkness. Hence, it means darkness in which there is no ray of light and stands for the dark difficulties with which an affair is sometimes attended, difficulties through which a man is unable to see his way. Man is therefore here taught to pray that his affairs not be enveloped in utter darkness. When you look at the other words that are derived from the word gasaka, It's describing that thought process that takes place before a person commits suicide. Okay, the intense darkness when it comes. So now you have Allah coming, Rabbil Falak. He is at the head of the separation that takes place. And we're seeking refuge from what Yaqub has produced. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, in Savior's Day 2011, I think, if I remember correctly, the minister spoke about Yaqub and how this, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I believe he said something to the effect of this represents the beginning of the reactive mind. Does that make sense? Talk about Patmos and Pilon.
You know, I vaguely do remember
I
that.
vaguely remember that. Okay.
Recently, not too recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, if we look at from the evil of that which he has created, and we talk about this evil as the reactive mind. So the evil of that which he has created, we're talking about Yaqub, and now the ayats that follow this, we're describing the characteristics of the reactive mind. From the evil, intense darkness when it comes. That's a person who's in severe restimulation, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if you want tech that lines up with that, look up the word heavy engram or occluded case. That's intense darkness, correct? Okay. Then it says, and from the evil, Shawla Nafatati fi al Ukad, and from the evil of those who cast evil suggestions, there goes that circuit, right? In firm resolutions. This takes place internally through our circuits, but it's taking place externally through social media. Evil of those who cast evil suggestions and firm resolutions. When you look up the word resolution, your TV's in high definition, right?
Yes, sir.
Computers in high definition. I mean, it has high resolution. It has a large amount of pixels per square inch, correct?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So the evil who cast evil suggestions in firm resolutions, that could be talking about where the television.
Yes, sir.
Where they tell lies to the vision, yes?
Yes, sir.
And then from the evil of the envy, when he envies, that's describing a suppressive. That's the 1.1, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Is envy on the tone scale?
Yeah.
Someone who's envious?
I haven't seen it in Science of Survival. It might be on Handbook for Clears, but I haven't.
What we
seen
have to do is, or what we have to do this week, assignment for us. Let's find a word. Let's clear the word envious. Look for the synonyms for the word envious, and then see if we can find it on the tone scale. Because I'm quite sure an envious person, they're so dangerous that they would have to be. I would almost say that would be covert hostility. That's 1.1.
It is. It is.
It would have to be. Envious
Whenever I
person would be 1.1. And what did Brother Eric say? That's the most dangerous person?
Yes, sir.
And one about say. Yes. And in fact, when you take the envious person also, the minister says, tell us this is the worst enemy you would have among you.
So,
right. Worst enemy and the most dangerous, I think that's the equation right there.
Okay. So,
and Brother Luke, just imagine people who have been in charge for so long, see that another people is coming up to take their place. Imagine the envy
and the hatred.
That's what envy does. That's why.
Yes, imagine. Yeah, we ain't seen nothing yet.
I'll say this, Sister Tina. We had a ministry class back in '97, and I'll always, I can't remember the sister's name, but every time I see her at Savior's Day, I always say, I remember you, sister, from 1997. She always starts laughing. There's two stories she told in the ministry class. We had to, I think it was North Carolina. We had to drive there it was just a laborers meeting. And she said, she talked about, she used baking bread and teaching how baking bread is how Allah makes a Muslim. You know, you mix the ingredients, you have to beat it, you have to knead it, you have to be rough with it, then you let it rise. You have to beat it, you have to knead it, you have to be rough with it. And that's how sometimes we go through life. Allah is rough with us, but he's trying to make us rise. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
But the one thing she said that always stuck with me, she says, you know, a child has baby teeth because they eat baby food. She says, but at a certain time, the child has to grow up and begin to eat adult food. So there's another group of teeth that will come and push the baby teeth out the way because the child has to now eat adult food. And she said there are certain people in leadership, and if I remember correctly, she talks about they're in leadership, but they might be speaking baby language. There's another group of individuals coming up of leaders that will come up and push those baby teeth out the way because it's time for us to eat adult food and and deal with the teachings on another level. And I just always remember I call that the parable of the baby teeth.
Yes, sir. Oh my God. Yes.
Brother Eric, did you have one last thing to say before we close it out?
You want me to? I would, yes, because as we get to the bottom of everything that you said, a reminder is that Allah is showing us certain things that we probably fail to recognize. Look how many cities are wiped out just with one little hurricane. And you see the houses, the cars, the trucks, and everything else rolling down the river. He has the winds. He twirled it up and he cleared thousands of miles. But yet, you spoke about the overwhelming event. And that overwhelming event is the one that is in the book of Revelation. It says, Babylon, Babylon is falling in one day. And then a little bit later said, no, in 1 hour. So now, if in 1 hour, Babylon falls, I can imagine why they call it the overwhelming event. And you know, the Holy Quran, the minister, the Muslim Elijah Muhammad always talk about that great earthquake. We have not seen it yet it is on its way. So now we have better prepare ourselves. Sorry. And at that point, we'll be able to do better. Because
yes, sir.
There are 2 more hurricanes forming right now. They don't know if they're going to come to the land. And one of them is going to be right at the Gulf again. Why the Gulf? Why the eastern side all the time? Because those must be the most evil one. Remember the first 13 colony states, they were on the eastern side first. Then you had another portion that was dividing the east and the west. You call that Louisiana, right? And that Louisiana portion is the one that Napoleon and all his subjects were working. And that portion now, if truth be told, because the messenger said we need 8 to 10 states for us. So now which one of those 8 to 10 states would you choose? Do you realize that from Louisiana up to the Great Lakes, that was the Louisiana portion? And it was from there, you got Illinois. And is it accidental that that first city called Chicago was built by a Haitian man? And next to it, you got Michigan. You see how much Master Father Mohammed asked questions about Michigan? Now, if Michigan is the number one, Illinois is because of number 2. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the minister tell us New York is the heart of the nation.
Mhm.
That would be number 3. So now, what about the state where the messenger of God was born? In fact, it is number 3. New York would be number 4.
Which is 3.
That's right here in Georgia. So now, if we got 4 already identified, and he never left the Carolinas out, nor Mississippi. So that will be 7. And if we careful, we can choose the other 3. We might say it's impossible. How possible is it for God to do things?
So what are you saying, that we keep these?
You go and think about it. I'm just saying it.
Mhm.
At that point, I think we are at that moment. Not all of us will see that day, but it is certain that it is on its way, and there is no averting it.
Yes, sir.
I think that should be enough for us to think about, as opposed to get it all said at once.
All right. Well,
Salam.
family. Walaikum salam. Thank you, Brother Eric. So, God willing, on Sunday, we might take and revisit this topic and go a little bit deep, because I had a whole lot more information, but there's no way to put it in all in once. But the assignment is to read and study Surah 88, the overwhelming event.
88.
Thank you, sir.
88.
I was thinking of it.
Overwhelming event. And there's something there's a lot of information in here, but talking about thrones raised high and cushions set in rows, and here we got people, sounds like auditing again, but we'll deal with it on Sunday, God willing. And hopefully within the next couple of hours or so, I will have this on YouTube. And over the course of the next couple of days, I'll index it so I can kind of get it organized to specific points, because we're 3 hours, and if you can go specifically to specific points to study, to go back and revisit certain topics, it'll be a little bit easier than trying to go through the whole thing. But with that being said and done, as always, family, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for your energy and your light, your cognitions, your case gain. I pray, Allah, that all of us are leaving at a much higher tone than we did when we came on.
Go on.
And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, just send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to try to do what I can do to improve on things a little bit. And with that being said and done, let us go ahead and close out in prayer. Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the curse of Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master, the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone that we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray after hearing thy teachings. Ameen.
Ameen.
You know something? When we were teenagers, my mother. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum salam, family.
All right.